So Fabien Hurzeler has made a tremendous start as manager of Brighton. I actually covered him in a video this summer when he left St. Pauli to join Brighton, and he was predominantly using a 3 at the back formation with the midfielders vacating that middle area, the 2 holding midfielders. Now at Brighton, he's moved to that 4-2-3-1, and I'm really impressed that he's managed to kind of go from a 3-4-3 to a 4-2-3-1 at 2 different clubs absolutely seamlessly. A lot of managers like to bring in the current kind of tactic and system. He still as well has them De Zerbi qualities in build-up. However, I do think he has a little bit more tempo to his play and a few more variations that we're going to take a look at. And with that, we've got 3 tactics to show you. 3 versions of sort of like a 4-2-3-1 and a more adventurous 4-2-3-1 that I used against Manchester City, that last win before the international break. One of them, by the way, my favourite one, has absolutely done tremendously well in the first 10 league games of the season, as you can see, picking up an impressive 2-1 win against Liverpool at Anfield and going to the Etihad and picking up a point. And if I'd have played a few more games, look, following games, West Ham, Brentford, Wolves, Bournemouth, and then Forest, that was a nice little run to really see us kick on in the Premier League. All right, let's get into it. As always, the Patreons, the tactic now, all 3 tactics are available for you. If you enjoy the content, smash a like on today's video, subscribe, obviously, and if you want to really support the channel, check out the Patreon, where I have got all those tactical downloads for you, so you can just copy it into your own FM24, save yourself. Don't worry though, we will go through every team and player role, player instruction, so you can copy it into your FM24 yourself, and it's really good that we've got a replication that absolutely cooks in FM24. Let's go. Right, to start with, they started with this 4-2-3-1. They had Ayari, who came in maybe as a surprise pick, and then Hinshelwood, big up Hinshelwood, because he's actually York City's manager, Adam Hinshelwood's son. So he's been playing a lot recently, played a little bit at the start of the season, I think at left fullback when Estepinian was out, but has then come in to play one of the DMs, and interested in what they've kind of been doing in build-up. So the first variation has been Hinshelwood dropping in to make a little bit of a back 3. So they did this at times. Obviously Van Heck, and in particular Igor as well. Igor can play as a little bit of a natural left back as well, so he's obviously very good at carrying. Hinshelwood would be a little bit of the central player, and then Van Heck is very good at those long sweeping passes. So they would build up like this, and similar to what a De Zerbi team would, the centre forward would drop in, and they would have this very split, sort of like a 3-3-4, with the 2 wingers, in particular Dringa, giving a lot of width, and Mitoma width, but staying extremely high on that back line. So if they couldn't build out short, they would then go on. So they're trying to bait the press from the opponents, and then maybe going into maybe a Welbeck or Rutter and finding these players out wide. Now, they did obviously different variations. At times it would look like this. With Igor and Van Heck, it would be a very much a Roberto De Zerbi build-up with like a 2-4-4, with the fullbacks not in particular getting too high. Obviously, we know Veltman used to be more of like a right centre-back. He does a very good job there, but he's not that absolute overlapping fullback. A little bit different on this left-hand side, and that's maybe because of the movements of Mitoma. Mitoma loves to work, maybe a start as a winger, but does like to come in, plays out wide at times, but does work well in these spaces here, getting plenty of goals. So it is good that Estepinian naturally likes to go around the outside. So that was the first little variation. Obviously at halftime they made a change. They were 1-0 down. I think it was Ayari went off, and on came Belieber. Now Belieber is very much an aggressive, sort of like that Moses Caicedo kind of replacement. Very good in the sort of like the final third in terms of breaking things up, and kind of acted as a bit of a volante. So he would still work in build up, still work in these areas, but out of possession would go alongside Rutter and would try and break down play in the final third. And then I think the latter one was actually Hinshelwood coming off, Matt O'Reilly coming on, and then I think João Pedro came on as well. And then Belieber ended up being sort of like a single pivot, not absolutely amazing on the ball, but the idea was what they had now was these 5 in attack here. And it was this line of 5 which actually led to the equalisers. Now, the movement of João Pedro actually led to this equaliser, the first goal. They eventually put in with João Pedro, I think, actually scored it with them sort of like ricochets in around the box. I think Welbeck was involved. But the movement also of Matt O'Reilly. So they put 5 on the attacking line. Because of the movement of João Pedro, that just brought Kyle Walker in. It brought him in a little bit narrow, which led Mitoma out there. Whole lot of space. Obviously, the midfield, the wide midfield of Manchester City was kind of working on a line of sort of like stopping the ball going out to Estepinian. And then Van Heck puts a tremendous switch in onto that left-hand side, and then they work it and eventually get the goal. So really well worked. 3 lovely variations with Belieber coming on at half-time, being a bit of a volante to start with, and then being a bit of a sort of like an anchor ball winning midfielder, and allowing João Pedro and Riley to be two very advanced 8s. Okay, so how does that look in the game? Okay, so here we are in FM now. All 3 variations, as I said, are going to be available for the Patreons. They're just small little tweaks, nothing in terms of maybe the tempo maybe increases, especially in the second half when they were chasing the game, but I've tried not to change that too much because they were going to press more and work harder being 1-0 down. Obviously didn't score. I don't think the equaliser was about the 78th minute. I've decided just to keep it on higher tempo for the full time, but this is the first one, and then we'll have the tweaks as we go. So the first half, I actually didn't think they played that badly. For this scenario, I've actually been using Vifa instead under Hurzeler'S, even though Hurzeler'S had a tremendous start to his season at Brighton. He's not actually that great in the game yet, maybe because he's only 19 years old, got 4-star potential though. And obviously Matt Vifa was probably brought in to do that role. And then they went with Ayari, who as well, if you look at his play attributes, he's more of a playmaker. Once again, extremely young, not great in FM. So to start with, I've been going with the version 2, which was the version that he did at half-time, the Hurzeler 2 for you Patreons, the Hurzeler 2, which would have been a Vifa as more of a half-back, and then we've been using Baliba to go in. Give us that little bit of a change in the final third and to really press a little bit higher. We've gone with this version here. Now, this was the version that they got the equaliser off, with João Pedro kind of working that left sort of like half space between the right back, which would have been Kyle Walker in the centre half. We've got then the Vifa role, the central midfield on attack, would then be Matt O'Reilly. He's going to then eventually progress into this area, but we've just dropped him a little bit deeper out of possession. We've obviously offset the João Pedro as well, so we can get a little bit of a 4-1-4-1 out of possession, and at the same time as well, can we recreate that switch of the ball into maybe a João Pedro, or allowing that space of Mitoma with that right fullback tucking in. The Hurzeler 2, this is the one that I've had the most success with. It's kind of been like the base tactic, and we've tweaked as we've gone. There'll be times when you think you maybe need to be a little bit more creative playing against a low block. The Hurzeler 1 with the roaming playmaker might be a little bit better. And I said, if you're pushing, you really want to be aggressive in that final sort of like few minutes, this works an absolute treat. Okay, so sweeper keeper on support for Vertbruggen, no player instructions. Veltman, fullback on support. Obviously, he's not absolutely... Now, he did do some lovely runs. He does occasionally, and I think it's a little bit of a decoy. When the left centre-half has the ball, he makes this long run. Or even when Estepinian has it, he makes this long run inside, into the sort of like the defensive line of Manchester City. I think it's a little bit of a decoy, because what that does is it pulls a player out. He runs out. He takes maybe a left winger, maybe a Salvinho or a Bernardo Silva, whoever was playing on the left-hand side, brings him out, and then it allows them to have a little bit more of an advantage, creates a little bit more space for maybe a Hurzeler'S to drop into during that first half. But because it was a little bit of a decoy, I've kind of left that off. So fullback on support for him. 2 ball-playing defenders. We've gone don't pass it shorter, and then the left side, pass it shorter and dribble more. I've done that because the left side sometimes is Igor, and he's a tremendous carrier with the... Not tremendous, he's a decent carrier with the ball. And then Van Heck, in particular, loves doing them long passes at times. Now, I know it contradicts myself a little bit, but the idea is, most of the time, can they play it short? But because he's a ball-playing defender, he will go long if need to. If you don't ever get those passes when they're on, just take the pass it shorter. What I'm trying to do is create that little bit of De Zerbi sort of like build up that they still do regularly by having that pass it shorter instruction line. Estepinian, complete wing back on support. We've gone that on support because we're going to allow him to be a little free. At times he works as a 3, sometimes he's here, sometimes he goes around the outside. I don't want him to be extremely high in build-up. In build-up, he's still quite deep in build-up, so that's why we've got the support option on rather than the attack option. The Hurzeler'S role does change because at times they build up with that 2-4-4. So you could go DLP, depending on what you've got next year, and just have a DM. But I do absolutely love a halfback, and at times it's a really good way of helping you build up as well. So Hurzeler'S, halfback, that number 6, obviously Max Vifa in the game, and I think long-term, Max Vifa, now he's coming back fit, will probably do that role. And then Baliba, it was a Yari for the first half, roaming playmaker, no player instructions. And then the switch for that for the second one would be to put him onto Volante. Close down more, tackle harder, because he was so good at breaking up things in that attacking third for Brighton, especially obviously when he came on at half-time. So that would be the change for that. The other 3 don't really change. Adringa, winger on attack. We want that, create that 4-2-4. So winger on attack, straying extremely high and wide. Mitoma one we've done inside forward on support with the instruction of stay wider, just so, because sometimes To create that 4-2-4 in build-up, we need him to be as wide as possible. Because we've got that complete wing-back, he will go out there, and then Mitoma will naturally come in anyway because he's right-footed, he's playing an inside forward, so he's naturally going to come in, and it gives us that lovely balance that we want to see. When they're trying to build out from the back, Mitoma stays in particular really wide, and then as they progress into that final third, Estepinian then gives the width, and we know that Mitoma is then going to want to come onto that right foot. Shadow striker on attack, João Pedro, no play instructions. The Rutter role, I think it was, it would have been Rutter. Lovely little combination between those two. Obviously, for the third tactic, you've just got him offset with Hinchelwood doing that central midfield on attack for the O'Reilly role, no play instructions. And then this one's been fantastic, scoring plenty of goals. Evan Ferguson, central. Obviously, it's Danny Welbeck, but in the game, Evan Ferguson's so good, and I think in time it will, at the age of 20, it's naturally going to become Evan Ferguson. 2 assists, but 9 goals in 10 games so far this season. He is a complete forward on support, not attack. It just allows him to, once again, to drop in. Remember, we want that 2-4-4 at times, and we do that beautifully well when he plays as a complete forward. There's lots of little rotations, so if he can come in and help with build-up, have a little bit of an overload, because what'll happen is, let's just go back to the tactical board. So what we get is sometimes it looks like this 4-2-4, look, let's get the ball back here. And then what he'll do is, he'll drop sometimes right into these areas here. And that then gives the defenders an option. If a Kyle Walker goes in the right back, it then allows that ball to potentially go into there to Mitoma. If the centre-half then follows him in, it then allows potentially a 3v3 in here. And then if no defenders come, it allows him to get on the ball and turn and play, which he does do at various occasions in that second half. So that's why I've gone complete forward on support. Obviously, you're going to get them runs from even the inside forward on support, but in particular, Rutter and Dringa on attack. They're going to really press and work that back line, runs in behind. Right, into the team instructions. Positive mentality, play out of defence, higher tempo, slightly shorter passing. When I've wanted to gain a little bit of control in games, I've tried to be a little bit, not pragmatic, but change it up. At times as well, when we're hanging on to win, not hanging on, but wanting to just make sure we secure wins, I've been dropping it down to shorter, and I've been dropping it down to slightly lower, and it just gives us some really possession numbers. The possession numbers haven't been amazing, but soon by making those 2 tweaks, that gives you that opportunity to really get hold of the ball, and you'll see your progression, your passing numbers increase. I would, if you want to initially start with lowering your, improving your passing numbers, just go shorter first. I do find higher tempo is obviously the kind of a little bit of the FM meta as well. So if you're wanting this to work in the game on a more consistent basis, try and keep that tempo high. Low crosses is the only other one. Not many crosses going to Danny Welbeck. There's loads of little passes into the penalty area. I didn't want to do work into the box because we've got Mitoma. Dringa will get into these wide areas. We'll get low crosses into the box. That's the plan. And we've scored plenty of goals so far this season using that way. In transition, goalkeeper rolls it out, plays even soft and joins in build-up as well. Counter-pressing, obviously, and counter-attacking. Yes, Mitoma, Dringa will be so good. Counter-attacking, staying those high lines. When we're trying to break, they'll initially go really high as well. So they'll try and exploit any spaces left by the fullbacks. And then out of possession, quite basic. Higher line, high press, trap outside, and that is it. We're now going to go and look at some highlights in the games, look at some goals. As I said, the season has started incredibly well. The only blip was probably a deserved blip against Newcastle, but and they missed a penalty as well. We weren't great, but it was a little bit frustrating. 80th minute goal from Isaac, and at the same time, the goal, I tell you what, I'm going to show you the goal, because it was one of these games where I thought, as longer the game goes on, we're going to score and we're going to nick something. And the highlight for it was absolutely killing for the amount of times we gave away the possession. So I'll let it play through. It's 10 minutes to go. We'll get possession of the ball. And I'll just show you the amount of times we lost possession when we shouldn't have done it. And I kept thinking, this is going to be our attack. Here we go. This is going to be our attack. Look at the space we've got out on that left-hand side. We lose it once. We then get the ball back. We lose it twice. And I'm thinking, oh my God, they're going to counter-attack. We get it back 3 times. We lose it 3 times. And I was starting to think, oh no, we've got it back. It's going to be our highlight, don't worry. No, we lose it for a 4th time in build-up. And then Isaac comes in and scores. And I was absolutely fuming. Not that we deserved anything out of it, but it's been our blip on our season so far. Beating teams that we're supposed to beat, but getting a win against Liverpool. And well, we were 2-0 up, they scored late on. And then this one as well. A draw at Manchester City, but they scored. Philip, of all people, Stefanovic, who never plays in real life, obviously a bit of an FM player, scored in the 94th minute. Here's one of our first goals. It's one of those low crosses, but I'm just going to show you some build-up. So Dunk and Van Heck have been my 2 main centre-halves. We've got Vifa doing the halfback role, so we've been building up with the 3. Our 2 fullbacks in a supporting role. Baliba as that volante, and then you've got Ferguson, the complete forward, Adringa, Toma, and I think there is João Pedro in there as the shadow striker. So Van Eyck carries forward with that dribble more instruction, helps just break the line a little bit, look. Into Ferguson, look how deep Ferguson's dropped off. Because he's not been followed by the 2 forwards, we then get that overload in the middle. He then gets to turn and play. We get a little bit lucky with that one. Scruffy pass, but Adringa hitting the touchline. We've got no instructions for Adringa, not cutting in. He's an out-and-out winger. He's going to attack that bottom line, that sort of like that baseline. And then once again, work it down the right-hand side. Lovely pass. There is João Pedro. Just look at the little movement of him. So he's dropped right in build-up. This is like literally 10 seconds before the goal. Spraying it out wide, then joins that attacking line. And this is where you get these midfielders not tracking runs. Look, from them late runs into the penalty area. Tremendous finish. I do love a shadow striker in FM. And then once again, we're absolutely rampant in this first half. Adringa down this right-hand side. Ferguson loves to drop in during build-up, but the moment the ball is played out wide, he is getting involved in the game. João Pedro right on that attacking line as well. 4-2-4 at times in possession. And what we're getting with Evan Ferguson as well, even though he's a complete forward on support, we're still getting those absolutely poacher instincts. So obviously because we're working it out wide a lot to Adringa, in particular on that right-hand side, a lot of his efforts and shots. So this is the map against Ipswich Town. So as you can see, in and around the penalty area, in and around that 6-yard box, so big chances. Obviously as well, we're doing low crosses, so better with the feet than the head. There you go, the green one in and around the 6-yard box. Southampton game, 1 shot, 1 off target, obviously 1 goal. I think 1 saved. Yeah, 1 saved as well, but look where the goal is, right inside that 6-yard box. 2 on target against Fulham, look, once again, goal, right in at the back post. 1 off target in around the penalty area, shot blocked. So a lot of chances, lots of high volume XG chances with this tactic. Complete forward on support, winger, go plug it in. I mean it, guys, you will not be disappointed this week, I don't think, with the Fabien Hurzeler 4-2-3-1. Thank you very much for watching. Smash a like on today's video. See you later.